Hello, good morning on this rainy day in Paris. Welcome to the urban school. Urban? That's strange. In many countries you have planning or urbanism or architecture, sometimes business school. No, urban school. Urban because cities are back in town, because all over the world, in fact, a lot of policies, a lot of how people live together, the way you invest in the future, and there are a few problems that are rising within cities and territories, both in France, in Europe, and in the world. So that's the urban school, because we want to combine those different disciplines and those different elements. In order to present you the urban school this morning, we're joined by the dream team made of...
Hi, I'm Erica Witt.
Hi, I'm...
Which degree?
I'm in governing the large metropolis.
Yeah, so I'm Javier. I'm in STU, Stratégie Territoriale et Urbaine.
And Guillermo Martin, I'm the executive director of the school.
I am Patrick Le Gallès, I'm the dean of the urban school. So we're going to see a little video explaining a few things about the school. Then we'll try to give you some ideas about the content and the logic of what this school is about. Then the students will explain, I don't know, what they're going to say about the school anyway, why it's interesting, possibly. And then Guillermo will give you more details about the way we try to prepare you for future labor markets. Let's see the video first.
École urbaine de Sciences Po. On est à Sciences Po,
English, no?
Université internationale de recherche, où on forme des gens avec des dimensions intellectuelles très fortes et des dimensions professionnelles très fortes. École, parce qu'on offre des formations urbaines, parce que le monde de l'urbain devient central pour le XXIe siècle. Et ce qu'on essaye de faire, ce n'est pas une école d'urbanisme ou d'ingénieur ou d'architecture ou de commerce, c'est un peu tout ça, c'est de former des étudiants par les sciences sociales. On essaie de comprendre dans les villes qui est gouverné, donc la sociologie, comment on gouverne, pour qui, donc de la science politique, avec quel type de développement économique et la pauvreté, avec l'économie, mais aussi la géographie, l'histoire, l'urbanisme. Ce qu'on offre à l'école urbaine, c'est un projet pédagogique basé sur des expériences très fortes, des projets collectifs, des visites, des cours comparatifs, et puis combiné avec des formations précises de différentes compétences. On essaie de développer toutes ces compétences parce que nos étudiants, on veut qu'ils parlent toutes les langues de la ville. On veut qu'ils travaillent avec des comités de citoyens, mais aussi avec des grandes entreprises transnationales ou bien UN Habitat. Ce qu'on essaie de faire, c'est de recruter des gens qui sont engagés, qui ont envie de s'engager sur des territoires et sur des terrains. Des gens qui peuvent faire de la comparaison, les 2/3 travailleront dans le secteur privé, 20% travaillera à l'international, 30% sans doute. Mais on veut des gens qui ont quelque chose à faire. Ce sont des gens qui sont passionnés intellectuellement par la question des villes, mais qui veulent agir collectivement avec d'autres. On a besoin d'étudiants engagés, d'étudiants qui veulent transformer le monde par les villes. Et donc, si vous retrouvez dans ce profil, que vous soyez de l'université, de grandes écoles, à l'étranger ou de Sciences Po, venez nous rejoindre. On a besoin de gens pour changer les villes.
All right, apologies if you don't understand French, because that was supposed to be in English, so that will be fine. But anyway, in the urban school, we try to get most students to speak English and French anyway. So those who are in the French degrees and master, we have a lot of English anyway, and those who are in the English degree, we encourage them strongly to learn some French anyway, so everybody will be bilingual at the end of the day, or more or less. As was just said, what do we try to do in this urban school? Number one, it's a school which is not very big, it's mid-size. We have 4 degrees, Stratégie Territoriale Urbaine, which is more about cities and territories in France and in Europe, it's entirely in French. We have the cycle d'urbanisme, which is closer to a planning degree, but within Sciences Po, it's in French, and it has students which have already have M1 level, and some of them may be architects or engineers or may have worked for a couple of years, so it's a little bit more mature, and it's more operational in some ways, but with the strength of what we have here, meaning social science and public policy and governance and transformation of cities. Governing the large metropolis, it's the same kind of programs, but concentrating and comparing large metropolis beyond Europe. So we work on big cities in South America, in Africa, in Asia, in the US. And the newborn, called Governing Ecological Transitions in European Cities, that will be specifically about European cities. And we have a double degree with the LSE, a double degree with Mexico. Next year we will open double degree with UCLA, an exchange, and some master executive, and some programs on digital cities and on housing and real estate. So it's quite you're part of a group with different students from different backgrounds. We try to, even more than other schools, we emphasize the diversity of background joining the school, including more technical training like engineers. We have more and more engineers. And it's a mid-size, so it's not a huge thing. Most degrees are about 50, 60 students, and we try to really follow you very precisely and closely, much more than in other places. It's very interdisciplinary. It's what we try to do at Sciences Po in general, and in the school in particular, it's to combine a very strong intellectual training. And you have class with very good academics who are very well known in the world and do some work in different parts of the world. And we try to give you the rigor of research. Sometimes we joke by saying that in the old Sciences Po, when I was young, we were told about, we were supposed to be very sure, self-assured. We try today to get very strong students, but we try to give them the rigor of research, to be able to understand the new domain that will change the cities, to understand the digital city, to understand what is going on with the challenge of the ecological transitions, and you are connected to very advanced research in different domains. And at the same time, you have a number of classes with professionals, and you have a very strong professionalization with capstone that Guillermo will explain in a minute. And at the same time, we try to give you various sorts of skills. You have to understand GIS, statistics, but also what you don't see, which we think are even more important skills. Capacity to speak all the languages of a city, capacity for collective action, capacity to negotiate, knowing exactly the counting of the finance of a project, but also to discuss with a refugee group in a neighborhood with illegal tents on the north of Paris. You have to understand how real estates are working, and you have to understand what is an architect. Very strange people, we love them. And you have to be able to combine those different elements to be able to develop collective action and to transform the cities. And to finish this introduction, I want to emphasize that, in a way, it's the international world, because we compare all the time. We aren't here to sell any model. We want you to be critical and comparative, and to be able to think, and then to be able to implement projects. And we think that a number of big issues are taking place in the cities, and that's, it could be very international. It's a concrete version of the international. You can work in all sorts of ways. We're very diverse. But we want you to be both very well equipped intellectually in hard skills and soft skills, like, to develop a project, to organize with different people, and to have long-term equipment, but to be very operational, to know different labor markets, and to be able to work in different labor markets. That's what my opening speech for the schools. Now, let's hear about what students have learned and used, and what do they find interesting in this school, if there is anything.
So yes, as I said, my name is Erica Witt. I come from the United States. I grew up in California. I did part of my undergraduate degree at Sciences Po Reims, so this was the Euro-American campus. So when I was looking at master's degree programs, I wanted to continue linking the comparative perspective and the fact that that governing the large metropolis offered the possibility to look at North American cities through a comparative lens was something that really drew me to this program. What I kind of found when I actually entered the program was that I learned much more than just comparing cities. There's so many different actors, so many different processes and different domains which can be addressed and which overlap. And this was something that that really pushed me and really drew me to and led me towards kind of defining my professional scope. So what I'm hoping to do now, I'm in my second year of GLM and looking at internships. I'm hoping to work in the domain of housing and resilience, so looking at the overlap between ecological challenges and how that interplays with the Californian housing market particularly. For me, one of the privileges of GLM is that after your first semester, you go on a study trip. Our cohort went to Mexico City, but it changes year by year. This year it's in Seoul, South Korea. During this trip, we spent a week meeting different actors from various organizations, from NGOs, from the government, from local politicians, etc. And it was during this time that we were able to apply the knowledge that we'd acquired during the first semester, learning to ask the right questions, kind of get to the sense of what it takes to really govern a large metropolis. effectively coming back from this, we all collaboratively worked together to put together a study report, which is available online if you're interested. And this was also a challenge because it required us to look beyond just the interactions we had and try to engage in a very analytical sense. And I think this is one of the great benefits of GLM, is that you aren't just learning how to implement, but you're also learning how to look at the global picture of a city and learning how to work amongst and against sometimes different actors who you will encounter.
Good point.
Yeah, so as I said, I'm Javier Morales. So I'm from Barcelona, actually. And so I did I entered the Poitiers campus, so the Euro-Latino American campus, and then I studied my third year in London at City University. And I think what really attracted me regarding STU, donc Stratégie territoriale urbaine, was this idea of really applied politics. And what I mean by that is, the work people do in Affaires Publiques or other masters is absolutely necessary, but most citizens just don't interact with the Ministère de l'Intérieur on a daily basis, and it's normal because they just don't. Yeah, exactly. So what really interested me was this idea of working with people on real life, daily basis public services. Things sometimes we don't even think about. The metro, the trains, hospitals. That kind of thing that we've integrated into our daily life, so we don't really think about it, but which do really have really complex systems which require both technical knowledge but also management knowledge. So and this is exactly what I found in STU. So apart from of course the courses themselves, one of the things that I really found really interesting was the Projet Co, which I think maybe you'll explain later. But essentially, we had the chance to work with the IEDAT, which is an institute in territorial research, and we actually got to work in the theme of Brexit, and especially how Brexit. How territorial divisions and wealth inequality and all sorts of geographical and historical dynamics led to Brexit, and which is still going on, by the way. So yeah, and but it was really enlightening, and it really expanded my understanding of how territories work and how cities work. And I'm actually now I'm going to do my stage also next semester, and I'll probably do it at the RATP. So next time you're waiting for your metro and the place is crowded, you can think of me.
It will be improved so much.
Exactly. Of course, I'll be there. So yeah, but yeah, it was really enlightening, and it's really this idea of applied politics and try to find real life solutions to specific problems, and I think that really, I thought it was really interesting, and that's really what I want to do.
Thank you. So you get a sense of a little bit of the experience in this master and the sort of jobs. I want to emphasize, and that would be a way to give a ball to Guillermo, the urban world has some labor markets where it used to be very by silo, and now it's opening into all sorts of things. So if those people are going to work in the jobs they just mentioned, that was not the case some years ago. And it's opening now for this sort of profile more and more. Guillermo.
Yes. Thank you, Patrick, Erika, and Javier, for your presentations. I'll try to be quite short, to leave enough room for questions and answers, which is the purpose of the meeting, but also to be specific about the initial training offered here at the Urban School. And maybe starting with our ambition, as Patrick already told you, we want to train professionals able to deal with a large diversity of job positions and sectors, from public policy making to business or community development. And to do that, we have three main guidelines that we follow. The first one is a multidisciplinary approach around the notion of governance. You will be trained by sociologists, political scientists, geographers, urbanists, even data scientists, in order to understand how actors interact and build local governance systems that in some cases work and in other cases do not work. We have a second guideline, which is putting our students as often as possible on the ground in the field through study trips, visits, balades urbaines, and so on. From day one, they are in the great Paris trying to understand how these local governance systems work or do not work. The third guideline is, I think we are quite innovative in our approach to the labor market. Of course, we have internships, which is a classical and efficient way to address the issue of job placement, but we also have a specific method called the group projects or capstones, depending on the master we talk about. And I will be more specific about the group project in a few minutes, because we are very proud and we think it's part of our DNA here at the Urban School. But first, let's look at the figures and see if we fulfill our objectives. And the answer is yes. 92% of our students have a job, find a job, before they graduate, or at maximum 6 months after their graduation, which is quite high level of job placement. But most of all, more important even, is to look at the careers, the career paths allowed by the Urban School. You have some examples there on the slide, and you're welcome to join us. We are present all day in room 35 of Eugène Dechtal to discuss with you these issues of job market and labor market. These jobs range from urban planning, real estate, mobility, environment services, social action, culture, politics, to community development, and so on. So it's very diverse. 66% of our students work in the private sector, which shows that the issue of building a local governance which is able to improve life conditions for the citizens. It's a matter of cooperation between the public sector, the private sector, and civil society. And we really believe that that's what we do here at the Urban School. Some insights in a short presentation of our masters, knowing that you will find more information in room 35 afterwards. We have 2 masters in French. One has 50 years now, is called Urban Planning Program. The other one is Urban and Regional Strategies, that's 15 years, I think, more or less. And 2 are in English. One is called Governing the Large Metropolis, and enables you to work in the large metropolises characterized by the informal sector, the importance of networks and urban amenities, and so on. The other one is called Governing Ecological Transitions in European Cities. It will be open in September 2020, but you can apply right now, and I think the title is quite explicit. Of course, you will do ecological transition in the other masters too, and all the masters are built on a common academic background. Of course, there are specificities depending on the subjects, but the choice, your choice, if you apply, is driven by the answer to the question, where do I want to work, in what part of the world? And this is the key question. We also have 2 dual degrees, one with the London School of Economics called Urban Policy, another one with the Colegio de Mexico called Comparative Urban Governance, and briefly, shortly, a dual degree also with UCLA, which will be very exciting too. Our masters are general enough to ensure I would say, long-term employability and stimulating career path. But of course, you can build some specialization, choosing your internship, choosing your group project or capstone, choosing some classes. And there are also some specific tracks that we have developed in terms of apprenticeship, risk management for stratégie territoriale et urbaine, African cities in governing the large metropolis, a research track which is open in almost all masters and allows you, if you want to do research and start a PhD, to connect with the doctoral school of Sciences Po, and an entrepreneurial track in governing the large metropolis, and also the possibility to do some entrepreneurship in other masters, of course. Internationalization is very important, crucial for us. 25% of our students are foreigners. This figure is increasing every year. And of course, we achieve internationalization via dual degrees, masters in English, but also via exchanges. And you have here our 7 partner universities in the United States, in Europe, and Asia that will allow you to do an exchange for a period of 6 months in your last semester.
Hong Kong is very popular at the moment for reasons you don't understand. You will understand, you know?
I think we are quite innovative in terms of approaches to the labor market. You will be trained in collaborative action, project management, innovation, and so on, which are key success factors in a world that, in a labor world, which is more and more complex and challenging. I want to highlight this specific method we have here at the Urban School, which is called the group projects or capstones. It varies from one master to another. A group project is a group of 4 to 5 students engaged, involved in the resolution of a problem raised by the public authority, a firm, or an NGO. And this is really important because it allows you not only to acquire these professional skills you will need, but also to do to have this interaction between theory and real life, as Javier told us about. And we are proud to have almost 40 group projects each year for the last 10 to 15 years. So it's very impressive. And according to students, but also employers, it makes a real difference when entering the labor market, because our students are considered to be very mature compared to other students. Of course, you will travel a lot. You have some destinations here. We just came back from the Ruhr in Germany, trying to study how the transition, how they were the transition, not only the industrial transition, but also the demographic transition, the political transition, and the economic transition, and the cultural transition there. And we are preparing a trip to Seoul with governing the large metropolis to see if they can become a smarter and a more inclusive city. And to end this presentation, of course, you will meet brilliant teachers that will leave a mark in your career. I was there 25 years ago. The urban school didn't exist, but Patrick was already there. And cities, of course, were there. And it's up to you to apply. We welcome your questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Guillermo. So you have these presentations. We're going to take your questions now, and let me just emphasize that the characteristics of a school is that we get a group of people. It's a group of administrators and teachers. It's a very collective organization, and we have quite interesting students. The urban school people, they want to do something, and that's what we want, people who want to really do something in the world. Thank you. Questions?
So thank you for your presentation. My question is very precise. If you're enrolled in the GLM and you are accepted into the research track, can you go on an exchange in any semester to a university you've mentioned today?
If you do the research track, so I should precise that the research track is also selective. Not everybody. You can apply. You have 6 months where you can do, and then after 6 months, we'll decide to select you or not, because Sciences Po PhD program is very selective as well. So we'll help you, but we don't take everybody. So it's selective. The answer is yes and no, meaning if you do the research track, semester 4, you have to do your fieldwork and to write your dissertation. and depends which subject you have, but because we have agreements all over the world with Sciences Po, you will spend probably a few months somewhere doing your field work, and then you come back and you write. But you will not do the internship because the other ones will do that, okay? So many students do a dissertation. If you do that on France, then you stay in France. But if you do your work on, one of my students did a wonderful study of the avogado and social divisions in Mexico City. It was fabulous, the type of avogado, the way it's just amazing. And so she spent sometimes, of course, in Mexico, and we have an agreement, so she was welcomed by university in Mexico City. And we do the same. Another student who did brilliant research track worked on waste disposal and organizations in Lagos. So he went to Lagos for 3 or 4 months to do field work, and then he came back. So second semester 4, you are on the research, and it depends on where you are.
Any other question?
Thanks. I had a question about the trip for GLM, like who organizes it, who chooses the city, who chooses the topic. So you mentioned, Erica, you went to, what was it, sorry? Mexico, and now you're about to, like the new class is about to go to Seoul, so how does that get organized?
Yeah, I can start, and the students will also give you some insights about how they are involved in the preparation of the trip. So the decision to go from for example, to Seoul is a decision which is taken according to the main guidelines we follow for the current year. And we are very interested, for example, in the question of smart city. And we wanted to go to Asia, so via different opportunities we decided to go.
If I may, Guillermo, just for the sake, we recently published some papers. We are killing the smart city. So we say digital city because we are,
I was
smart
more,
cities like...
I was more political.
Yeah, we are critical also sometimes, just...
So we decided to go to Seoul, and of course we have connections with universities there. We have French firms and international firms that we know, and our connections to find interesting people there. But the most important thing is how students are involved in the preparation of the trip. So maybe Javier or Erica, you could explain a little bit how it's not only a trip, but also part of your scholarity, and how these study trips are really workshops that help not only the students or the urban school, but also the city that welcomes us to learn more about how they function.
Maybe you want to go first? Or?
Sure. Yeah, so for Mexico City, one of the interesting things about it was undergoing a political transition at the time. There were... the president and as well as the mayor came into office a few weeks prior to when we were there. So I believe it was partly chosen with the foresight that this would be occurring. And so it was very interesting to see how the dynamics played out with regards to that. But we did begin from the very first week of GLM in our course taught by Professor Vitale, as well as our other courses. We started looking at specific case studies of Mexico City, for instance, at issues relating to air quality and regulation regarding pollution. We read a book on urban political ecology and how water has been managed in Mexico City. So from there, we were starting to kind of like get the gears turning and start to think about some of the issues that we would be confronted with when we arrived. And sometimes it very well aligned with what we encountered when we met people in Mexico City. Other times it was more of a process of trying to see how all these different puzzle pieces fit together. But basically, it was one of the opportunities to begin to see some of the theoretical training that we had be put into effect and play out. So it was a very good experience.
Yeah, so I just came back, we just came back a couple of weeks ago from the Ruhr Valley, which I really don't know how to pronounce. But, and yeah, so I think what's important to note is that like 3, 4, 5 weeks before the actual trip, we got organized and we started research on a vast variety of topics regarding the Ruhr. So so of course industrial transition, which actually didn't really work out that well there, but it was interesting also to see, where were the failures and the successes, and so the idea here is that we don't just go there and see stuff. There's a previous work of research and trying to establish like a program of why are we going to see what we're going to see? What do we trying to find out? What are the questions we're seeking answers to? And so that really made it a powerful and enlightening experience, precisely because we had all of this previous work. And of course, once we came back from there, we were also working on making like a dossier, like a final report where we try to provide answers,
and a short documentary too, which is very common.
Yeah. By the way, I do recommend, if you ever go to Germany, the Riesling, which is a white wine. Yeah. It was one of my main conclusions.
Please don't put that online. Just one little note on top of that. I should add that when you do the capstone, we have a contract with the organization paying for the capstone. But it's part of your learning process. You're not a consultant. You are learning to work, okay? All the money pays for the trip. So, there's no question, so do you have the money to go to somewhere? You worked, and the money you make by your work is going to finance the trip. Everybody goes to the trip. Okay, there's no discussion about, it's entirely paid by your own work. So it's a very virtuous circle. Question?
Hi, I wanted to know what are the main goals in the partnership with AgroParisTech and Superhero that you propose?
We have several partnerships with engineers, and it's part of the idea of the urban school to not only be multidisciplinary in terms of social science, but also to open the room to hard science or engineers, and this is part of the idea of these specific partnerships. But we also have other partnerships with ESTP in regarding how to build the city, or many partnerships exist and are able to provide specific tracks and admission tracks for some. But we should discuss that maybe in a more bilateral way.
But can I emphasize that? I mean, it's an interesting time for higher education, because especially in France, you have the engineers doing the math, and then the other ones preparing to run. We clearly are in a period where, both in terms of research and the production of knowledge, we need really to try to articulate and to combine different kinds of disciplines, and also people who are able to play with the two. So it's a general strategy of Sciences Po that our students, more and more, they are trained with some scientific element, including humanities and human scientific educations. We're also opening a bachelor with science and social science. So we are trying to increase the connections between more scientific background in the classic sense and social science. And at the master level, we try to recruit more and more engineers or people from a scientific background, because in a number of issues, from finance to housing to ecological transition to the digital city, you need to combine those different things. So it's a very important drive for us, both at Sciences Po in general and in the urban school in particular, to get more engineers. It's a bit difficult at the beginning because you have to learn a different way to work, but you can also, we are innovative, we have online MOOC, you can look at these things as well to train yourself, but it works extremely well. At the end of the day, they do formidable career. And we think that trying to combine these different origins from students, that's also what is absolutely central in the making of cities. I mean, think of all those cities where the engineers were looking at the utilities and the lawyers were looking at something. It didn't work very well. And it's a very exciting period, both for research and for the labor market, when you see more and more people trying to combine some of those elements together with different type of experience. So we see that as an absolute priority for the school. and it's working extremely well. And if I can mock a little bit my Sciences Po student coming from a bachelor, it's good for them also to be involved and interacting with engineers. It makes a huge difference for the understanding of some of the technical elements that do matter and that can be questioned. And I just stop on that. But think about algorithms that are developed to try to govern bits of the city for the good or for the worse. You need people to are able to do some coding to understand what is an algorithm. But you need also to understand all the images, all the social elements that are put in it. Okay? So that's what we push forward.
May I add something?
Yeah.
Yep. Additionally, I think that's one of the really the greatest things about GLM is that because there's so many students from different backgrounds and who have different interests, there's really a sense of collaboration among the students. And for instance, right now we're all in the process of looking for internships. And what you see is not competition between students, but really like collaboration. And because everyone has different things they're interested in, they're always looking to help each other find places for each other to land. So I think that's maybe compared to some of the other masters at Sciences Po, you have much more of a collaborative spirit, and that's also reinforced through capstone projects and things like that.
Governance is collective action, please.
Yeah. Hello. I wanted to know what is the proportion of English classes in the French formation, if there are any, and is there a required score to any English tests, for example, the TOEFL, to enter the school? Thank you.
No, please.
You need a C1 level to enter either governing the large metropolis or governing ecological transitions in European cities. Our two English-speaking masters, there are all the classes are in English, and for our two French-speaking masters, everything is in French, but you will also need to learn English throughout your education during these 2 to 3 years.
But the idea is that in the French degree, most things are in French, and all the compulsory things are in French, but some of the electives, some of the options, some of these transversal classes, you may have some choice between French and English. And we will encourage you to follow some classes in English, because you have a lot of English class anyway when you're here, and you need, at the end of the 2 years, to be much better in English anyway. So it's not compulsory. You can survive only with French in the French degree, which I think is important, but you also need to learn some English. So for instance, we have a very important class which is transversal for the school on urban history, because you need to have an idea of a background of where all these world cities come from, and you can follow it in French or in English. But what we see is that some foreign students will follow it in French to learn some French, and when they specialize, and the other way around. Or you follow over. But you have some choice, and we can advise you on how to follow that.
I think we have 2 or 3 minutes left, so some questions.
Hello, thank you for your presentation. I would like to have some information about l'Agence Française de Développement and your partnership with l'Agence Française de Développement.
Yes, we have partnership with these kind of development organizations. We develop a lot of capstones, so group projects with them. They have a partnership with Sciences Po in general, but we very much use this partnership at the urban school. So students are doing a capstone almost, not each year, not every year, but I imagine it's quite that. So the AFD trusts our students and our professors to give highlights about informality in some countries, about smart cities. I was 1 week ago in a conference with the Francophone mayors dealing with how to elaborate a model of data relating to mobility, and our students were presenting a capstone regarding these different models which are different from, of course, Asia to Latin America or Africa. And the AFD was really, really interested in that work. They were welcoming the opportunity to start a new capstone for next year. So we have a strong, strong connection with them. And even for labor market opportunities or internships, it's very wide. The possibilities are very...
So just to complete, we are doing exactly that. We have ongoing relations all the time, and we do a lot of projects with them, but we are also independent from them. Okay, we are not here to promote the French model. And sometimes we have slight disagreement on some things, which is fine. So it's a very healthy relationship. They have their independence, and we have our independence. Sometimes we do extremely close connections on some things, and sometimes we don't. So it works very well. I think we have ongoing relations all the time. We do a lot of projects for them, but not always.
And it's the same with other institutions, international ones or French ones.
My capstone was with the AFD, and we were working in Tripoli, Lebanon. So if you have any further questions, I could answer afterwards.
And once again, in room 35, you have the possibility to discuss with us, and we can show you study trip reports, capstones reports, and so on.
Last quick question. Two in a row. You answered questions simultaneously. One after each other. Quickly, I mean.
Hello. Yes, I have a question about the dual degree, with the double degree with the LSE.
Yeah.
Are there any special requirements, like in English or?
There is no such special requirement, but it's a selective degree, so you have to send your application, and there's a joint committee between LSE and ourselves to pick up the students who will be part of this degree. So there's no specific requirement. I think the level C1 in English still is compulsory.
Last question.
Hello, thank you very much for your presentation. My name is Charlotte. I wanted to know about the application for the oral, if it will be only in English or both in French and in English.
For the degrees,
for the governing
for the degrees in English, it's in English. For the degrees in French, it's in French. We are very coherent. You know, we are a level of coherence which is amazing.
Okay, and for the register letter as well.
Sorry?
For the letter as well, it will be in English.
We don't care, both. We are completely bilingual the way we work.
Okay.
So it doesn't matter at all.
Okay.
For specific questions regarding admissions and applying to our masters, please come to us and we'll be more specific.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for the question.
Thank you very much.
Advice.